bombshell newsmaker interviews and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A very good afternoon and welcome to the Briefing PM, an hour of the latest political news, debate and analysis here on GB News. I'm Darren McCaffrey and here's what's coming up over the next hour. The leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, this morning said that the government was not acting quickly enough to address the situation on the cost of living crisis. We'll be looking at his plans for combating those rising energy bills. And it's just 2 weeks to go, you'll be relieved to know, until the new Conservative Party leader is announced, and things are not looking great for Rishi Sunak. We'll be finding out why. And it comes as Michael Gove, though, has come out in support of him in the race for number 10, criticising Liz Truss's tax policies, calling them a holiday from reality. Is he definitely now ruling himself out of the cabinet? We'll be speaking to his former special advisor. And the daughter of a staunch Putin ally has been killed in a suspected car bombing, but was actually the man called Putin's brain really the intended target. What does it mean for the war with Ukraine? We're speaking to an expert about who really could have been behind it. And as ever, do get in touch with your views. You know the email address by now, gbviews@gbnews.uk, or indeed tweet me at gbnews. All that and so much more between now and 4. But first, at the top of the hour, the very latest news headlines.
Good afternoon, it's 2 minutes past 3. I'm Bethany Elsey here to bring you up to date from the GB newsroom. Criminal barristers in England and Wales will stage an indefinite and uninterrupted strike next month. Members of the Criminal Bar Association have already been walking out in alternate weeks in a dispute with the government over jobs, pay and legal aid funding. The new and all-out industrial action will start from the 5th of September. The Ministry of Justice says more than 6,000 court hearings have been disrupted so far. The Labour leader is calling on the next Prime Minister to make insulating homes a national mission amid soaring energy bills. Sir Keir Starmer has set out plans to upgrade 19 million homes over the next decade. The party says their heat-saving project would save households £11 billion over the next 3 years. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak has criticised Liz Truss, claiming her plans to tackle the cost of living crisis could plunge the economy into an inflation spiral. Ms Truss argues her plans will help the UK economy, but Sir Keir Starmer is urging both leadership candidates to recall Parliament to tackle the crisis.
Unless action is taken, energy bills are going to go through the roof this winter, which is why we, the Labour Party, have said we should freeze energy prices, not let those bills go up, and pay for that in part with the windfall tax on oil and gas companies, are making huge, huge profits. Alongside that, we need a national mission to insulate homes. That's a longer-term issue. I called for that a year ago now. If the government had done that, we'd have the best part of 2 million homes insulated. This morning I've been seeing next-generation homes with insulation built into them. So we need to freeze prices for this winter.
Ex-Formula One boss Bernie Ecclestone has pleaded not guilty to a charge of fraud. He's accused of allegedly failing to declare £400 million of overseas assets to the government between 2013 and 2016. The 91-year-old made his first appearance at Westminster Magistrates Court this morning after being charged last month. An 8-day strike at the UK's biggest container port, Felixstowe, has entered its second day. Almost 2,000 members of Unite, including crane drivers and machine operators, are walking out in a dispute over pay. It's the first strike to disrupt the port since 1989. National Officer for Docks at Unite the Union, Robert Morton, told GB News members want a pay increase that's relative to the company's earnings.
I don't accept that it's the unions that are inflating the profit. I accept that it's the employers that are doing that by making these profits, and good luck to them. But why not share them? Our members of Unite are so angry that they are saying enough is enough. We got you through the pandemic. This is the way you treat us now. And you should be offering an increase that is relative to the company's profits.
Downing Street says the failure of water companies to adequately reduce sewage discharges is completely unacceptable. A Number 10 spokesperson says water firms have a duty to put their customers before shareholders and that they expect urgent action or face fines. It says Environment Agency data obtained by the Liberal Democrat Party shows monitors that are used for tracking sewage being pumped into the sea are faulty or not even installed. Russia is accusing Ukraine of assassinating the daughter of one of President Vladimir Putin's top supporters. Russia's Internal Security Service, the FSB, claims a Ukrainian citizen who arrived in the country in July was behind the attack on Saturday night. Officers allege the suspect fled Russia into Estonia after Daria Dugina was killed in a car bomb on a road outside Moscow. Ukraine has denied any involvement and the allegations have not yet been independently verified. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan is facing a terrorism charge over a political speech he gave at the weekend. He's accused of threatening government officials about the alleged police torture of one of his aides. Hundreds of his supporters have gathered outside his home in the capital, Islamabad. Bosses at the world's second largest cinema chain, Cineworld, are considering whether to put the firm into bankruptcy. Earlier this morning, they confirmed they're looking at options for the business, which is struggling under heavy debts. Theatres around the world will remain open as usual for now. And the Scottish Government is being urged to intervene in a strike being held by council staff in Edinburgh, which has left bins overflowing. The Conservatives and Lib Dems are both demanding action, although First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says she hopes an improved pay offer will be sufficient to end the disruption. The walkout is the first in a series of protests planned by trade unions over pay. It will continue until the end of August. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens now. Let's get back to Darren.
Yeah, very good afternoon. It is 7 minutes past 3 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. We're on TV, online, and of course on your radio. Thank you very much indeed for your company. And let's bring you up to date with the big story today. And of course, that continues to be the cost of living crisis, with a certain idea that we're all facing a pretty dire situation across the country in the months to come. One area which is particularly raising concern with almost everyone is, of course, the rising cost of energy. Well, Leader of the Opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, this morning said the government was not acting quickly enough to address the situation. He spoke to reporters and was firstly asked what Labour's policy would be to combat those rising fuel costs.
Well, unless action is taken, energy bills are going to go through the roof this winter, which is why we, the Labour Party, have said we should freeze energy prices, not let those bills go up, and pay for that in part with the windfall tax on oil and gas companies are making huge, huge profits. Alongside that, we need a national mission to insulate homes. That's a longer-term issue. I called for that a year ago now. If the government had done that, we'd have the best part of 2 million homes insulated. This morning I've been seeing next-generation homes with insulation built into them. So we need to freeze prices for this winter, but we need a longer-term answer. That's insulating homes, a national mission. Instead of a national mission, we've got a zombie government, and that's the root of the problem.
So, I mean, how does this practically work? I mean, how much is this going to cost? I know it could save consumers money in the long term, but surely the government's going to have to part fund this.
Well, I've been talking about this building block here, and it's quite clear that the building costs are not much higher than the ordinary cost of building a block, but it will be energy efficient. So 2 things are needed. Freeze those energy bills this winter, using a windfall tax on oil and gas companies, making huge profits. Alongside that, a national mission to insulate our homes. Millions of people are heating their homes and losing most of that because they're not properly insulated. That's why I called a year ago for a national mission on this. If the government had actually done something, we'd have 2 million homes insulated right now. And that would be people with much, much lower bills. And we can't go on like this with a government that's absolutely missing in action in the middle of a cost of living crisis.
You talked about a zombie government there and missing in action. Then isn't it sensible, if Liz Truss becomes Prime Minister, that she doesn't need an OBR forecast, that she needs to get on and make decisions, have an emergency budget maybe as soon as possible?
We need an emergency budget. We should have had that months ago to deal with the cost of living crisis. But the OBR is there to make sure that money is spent wisely and properly. So, of course, you need the OBR in place for that. And I think that's why there's been such a reaction to Liz Truss's proposal that she's going to just put that to one side. But more important than that, what we need to hear is, what are you going to do about the cost of living crisis? Labour is leading on this. We've said freeze those bills this winter. Make sure people don't pay any more for their energy prices. Alongside that, have an insulation scheme that means that in the middle and long run, we actually have a better answer to the energy crisis that we're in the middle of.
Just a few other things. Criminal barristers, do you support them going on strike?
Well, look, I quite understand, whether it's barristers or others, why people and how people are struggling to make ends meet. And what I want to see is the government to recognise that, do something about it, resolve these issues in whichever sector they are, but also have bigger picture answers. The answer for many, many people in terms of bills is things like freezing the energy prices, because that's going to drive people even further into problems with their bills this winter. So I want to see the government step in and actually help resolve these issues. Instead of that, we've got a government doing absolutely nothing.
But in saying that, we've got strikes with barristers, with dockers essentially, in Felixstowe, rail staff. I mean, are Labour in favour of these strikes? I don't think the public know whether you're in favour of them, against them, or pretty apathetic towards them.
I want to see these issues resolved. Many working people are really struggling to make ends meet. Labour understands that. That's why we put our proposal on the table to freeze energy prices, because that's one way of ensuring not only that those prices don't go up this winter, but we bring inflation down. Our plan to freeze prices means inflation comes down by 4%. That's a big driver of many of these issues. So we want to resolve these issues. The government is sitting on its hands doing absolutely nothing.
Just very finally, very sadly, of course, Tyson Fury lost a relative of his over the weekend in a stabbing. He's calling for stronger sentences when it comes to knife crime. Is that something that you, the Labour Party, supports?
Well, the first thing I'd say is obviously our thoughts are with him and his family and friends for their tragic loss. I do think we've got to address knife crime. I think that is to do with sentences. It's also to do with the support that we need in our communities. The government's ripped all of the money out of youth services, and they're all interlinked. So yes, we do need action on this, and I think it's time for us all to come together to make sure that we put our shoulder to the wheel on this.
There you go. That was Sir Keir Starmer speaking a little bit earlier. Well, let's turn our attention now to the race for number 10. Is it all over for Rishi Sunak? We look at the polls, it seems to suggest it is. Well, joining me now is the Conservative councillor in Swindon, Basil Solomon, who is backing Rishi Sunak for the leadership. It's been a few weeks, hasn't it, since we last spoke? You still thought he could get it over the line, though it was looking a bit less likely. What's your view today with, less than 2 weeks to go?
Well, Darren and GBNews and Swindon, we got the MP markup coming over to Swindon. We got a Conservative event going on, and we're still listening to our members and giving them that chance to listen to what Rishi has to offer. And I think he's the underdog, but we can't give up on the fight. I think it's a British thing, and it's called resilience. Just keep going.
Indeed, but why do you think he's not done as well as he had hoped? Why do you think he's behind and looking unlikely to win?
I think we're listening to the polls, we're listening to a lot of different things. But when I'm on the ground and speaking to members, what I find is there's a change. People are voting for him. So there's still people out there voting. And also in the past, some members have voted. And when I walk around and listen to residents and see what's happening in the community, there is this cost of living crisis that's going on. And I think he's going to pick us out of that situation. I think we can't rule anything out until the final day. So keep voting for Rishi because we have serious issues. And he did predict about the inflation rise, which is like well over 10% right now. So we need someone with that skills, with the economic skills to get in there and help us with the economic crisis we're in.
Instead of that, there's a report today in The Times, a new poll that found that 49% of Conservative supporters thought that Boris Johnson should remain as Prime Minister. Forget about Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss. You're there, you're in Swindon, you're a Conservative member, you talk, as you say, to other members. Is that poll a reflection of reality that you see on the ground, that actually there's a bit of buyer's remorse in all of this, that many Conservatives maybe regret getting rid of Boris Johnson?
I see there's lots of emotions, and currently there's a lot of feeling, and there's obviously a feeling of loss. He's done some good things during the pandemic with the vaccination schemes, and then you think about Rishi doing the furlough and helping us financially during the pandemic. There's a lot of feeling, and then there's also, like, I just listened to Keir talk about the zombie government, but local government has been there. We're serious about helping people. We have an 18-point checklist in Swindon that people look for if they're in financial crisis during this, and we have citizens' advice working side by side with us. So we are doing serious politics. So I would say to Keir that that's the other job for Rishi, is to beat the Labour Party at the next election. And he says zombie government. I think Labour has become a bit zombie because they are basically firing ministers who are striking. And now today you have the barrister strike. So I wonder what Keir's going to do now.
Yeah, but it's not up to Keir Starmer to sort that out. It is up to the government. And the point is that we've got record waiting times, hospitals piling up in hospitals. We've got barristers on strike, train workers on strike, dockers on strike. We've got inflation predicted today potentially to hit 18%. And there is no real government because Boris Johnson can't or is not prepared to make any decisions at the moment because he's not allowed to. So it's not necessarily wrong to say there's a zombie government.
Darren, I hear what you're saying, and I respect people who have those feelings. At the end of the day, what I want to say is local government is functioning. And at the same time, it's a variety of councillors across the country and MPs who are working and to help the British people. So, you are saying we're up against it? Yes, we are. And that is why I say Rishi it's historical, and he's come at the right time. And I think, at the end of the day, what we want is a leader who can pick us up. And I always quote Churchill when it comes to this sort of things, because I think we're in a terrible situation. But the reality on the ground is people are struggling. So who's going to lift us out of that? That's the question. And for me, it's vote for Rishi.
In the end, though, and finally, it's probably going to be, let's be frank about this, Liz Truss. Can the party genuinely then unite behind her as leader? There'll be a lot of people who, as I've just suggested, will possibly see it as a mistake to have got rid of Boris Johnson. There'll be people like you who wanted to see Rishi Sunak and his economic proposals installed. Can the party really unite if Liz Truss wins?
Darren, I think what it is we have so much talent, and it's a broad church. At the end of the day, we are going to be united. We've got a wonderful kingdom, the United Kingdom to look after. And at the same time, what we need is a leader that's compassionate at the same time. And so we don't give up till the last minute. And it's the same with, the crisis we face, it's challenges we face, and there's many of them. We need a wonderful united Conservative Party, a united kingdom, and the people working hand in hand. And I think it's communities across the country that are working together, currently helping each other through a terrible crisis with a lot of strength.
OK, well, we will see Basil Solomon there in Swindon for us this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here on GB News. Much appreciate your time. Let's move on now, because raw sewage is being pumped by water companies into our seas and rivers well over 1 million times in the past 5 years. That's according to the Labour Party, who's obtained information through a Freedom of Information request to the Environment Agency that between 2016 and last year, sewage was spilt at least 1.2 million times in England and Wales. It means that sewage was pumped into our waterways more than 9 million hours during a 5-year period. Have you this summer possibly been swimming in human sewage? Pretty shocking stuff. And our South West reporter Jeff Moody is in Swanage on the Dorset coast and has been looking at the state of play there.
Well, the discharge here in Swanage happened last Wednesday. But to be honest with you, I could have picked anywhere on the coast from Hastings all the way to Land's End and up the coast too as far as Cumbria. The problem really has been everywhere over the south coast. Well, the water companies are saying, they're keen to point out that 95% is just rainwater, but it's the other 5% that we're more concerned about. That's where the salmonella, the E. coli and the hepatitis B comes into force if you come into contact with that raw sewage. Why is this happening? Well, it's happened very simply because of the weather. We had very, very dry, hot weather, as we know. The ground became very baked, not as porous as it usually is. And so when the rains came, the Victorian sewage system that we have, mainly in this country, just couldn't cope. So the choice is you either discharge to the sea, which, by the way, is perfectly legal if need be, or you end up with raw sewage all over the street. So that's why putting it into the sea is the better of two evils. Well, the water companies are saying, look, use your own initiative as to whether you want to swim in the sea. But how can you tell? There's no way of telling. The water in this country by the sea always looks this colour. So there's no real way of telling whether it's infected with sewage or not. And that is the problem.
That is the latest there from Swanage on that, and it does seem that there's a bit of pressure on the government on this, not least of all, it must be said, when it comes to sewage, from within the Boris Johnson family, with Stanley Johnson blaming the government for not sorting out this problem. It is a situation, I think, that the government's going to have to address in the weeks to come, though the Downing Street spokesperson today effectively blaming it on those water companies, saying that they need to do more. OK, we're going to take a quick break here on GB News. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, though, we're going to talk about the economic outlook for the country. And my word, it is not looking good. Joined by the legend, our very own Liam Halligan. There he is. In just a couple of minutes. You won't want to miss that. But first, let's bring you up to date with the very latest weather. I'll see you in a couple of minutes.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. A bit of a mishmash out there today. Some places having a bit of evening sunshine, but most staying fairly cloudy. Rain and drizzle here and there. Quite warm and humid, particularly in the south. Tucked in between these two weather fronts, quite a lot of warm and humid air as it's cooler conditions further north. But these weather fronts are bringing a lot of cloud. They've brought some outbreaks of rain and still some heavier bursts of rain this evening over the Midlands, drifting over northeast England. A bit of showery rain too, crossing Scotland, but turning drier in the west, at least for a time. A few showers overnight moving across Northern Ireland. It's going to be quite a warm, humid night with temperatures in towns and cities holding up generally in the mid-teens. So quite a warm, humid start to Tuesday. Again, it's a fairly messy picture, but most of England and Wales will start dry, and for many there'll be some morning sunshine. A zone of cloud drifting across Scotland with some outbreaks of rain. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but mostly here it's dry and fine. And the cloud then thickening for Wales and southwest England with some heavier bursts of rain moving in here to end the day. But much of the eastern side of England will stay dry, not much rain here. And quite warm and humid in the sunny spells. Temperatures getting into the mid-20s at least. Some heavier showers then drifting across the Midlands through Tuesday evening. Again, largely missing East Anglia in the southeast, and then another zone of rain developing and spreading into parts of England and Wales for Wednesday. Some uncertainty about the exact position of this rain band, but it could be quite a wet day for parts of South Wales and parts of southwest England on Wednesday. A few showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, but also some good spells of sunshine here. East Anglia in the southeast looking dry on Wednesday and really quite warm. Temperatures could get into the high 20s in places. Cooler conditions for Scotland and Northern Ireland. The outlook is still rather messy with low pressure nearby, some showers, this weather front moving through, but signs of high pressure bringing drier weather for most of us into the weekend.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne. At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for. So howie in for Real Britain Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
Now, almost 2,000 workers have walked out of the UK's largest container port at Felixstowe. It's the latest in a summer of industrial action. The strikes will see supply chain severely disrupted, the head of the Unite Union said as he warned of further strikes. 1,900 members, ranging from crane drivers to steve drawers and machine operators, are taking part in the first strike at the port in over 30 years. So what could the disruption mean for you and me? What about the wider economy, with predictions today suggesting inflation could hit not 13%, not 16%, but maybe 18% by next year? But joining me now is that legend I was talking about before the break, our economics and business editor, Liam Halligan. Liam, let's talk about Felixstowe first of all. This is the biggest port in Britain by quite a long way, and this disruption will have an impact.
It will. I mean, global supply chains, British supply chains, hauliers and so on, we're just getting back in the saddle, if you like, after the huge disruption of lockdown. It's taken well over a year for the global economy to start firing again on all cylinders. And then our biggest port, as you say, Felixstowe, where about 50% of freight coming in and out of the UK via sea goes through that port in Suffolk, an astonishing number. 1,900 Unite workers have voted by 9-1 to take industrial action. They came out on Sunday. They're going to stay out for 8 days. Unite is, of course, the amalgamation of the old T&G union, Transport General Workers and Amicus.
And this is over paying conditions?
It's over paying conditions. The union appeared on GB News this morning and on my show, On the Money, at 1 p.m. They aren't taking any prisoners, so to speak. They're saying, look, if we don't get what we want, they want a 10% pay rise. The company that owns Felixstowe, the parent company is called CK Hutchison, that owns ports around the world. They've offered 7% and a 500 quid one-off payment. There are still about 500 workers working at Felixstowe, mainly on the admin side. They've taken the money on the table. But the people, as you say, the stevedores, the crane drivers, the people doing most of the physical grunt work, if you like, highly skilled in some cases, they're earning about 45 grand each on average, not too shabby. They are determined to get that 10% pay rise.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was listening to the chief executive of the company yesterday saying we are a successful company. That's why we pay people above, actually, what the average is in that industry. But at the same time, clearly workers see inflation running away. Is there any way that this strike actually be mitigated using other ports, Ellesmere Port, for example, elsewhere?
So, look, in some senses, Darren, you know, we don't trade as much in goods as we used to. So Felixstowe is barely in the top 10 ports in Europe, right? and Southampton is the 14th biggest point in Europe. Southampton's our second biggest port. It could take some of some of the goods coming in from Felixstowe during this stoppage. But in general, we don't trade that much in goods and services anymore. We don't have a port in the top 50 in the world because most of those are in Asia.
China,
China in particular. But having said that, Felixstowe is still really important. If you're a car manufacturer in the Midlands and you need components from the European Union or elsewhere, they're probably going to come through Felixstowe. If you're a retailer, and this is really why I think the unions have timed it now, we're about to come into our most busy retail period with the November Black Friday and Christmas, and retailers around the country, they use sort of late August, September to stock up to get themselves ready. That's going to be much harder. Southampton can take some of the slack if it is just 8 days, and other ports too. But if it goes beyond 8 days, and the union's sounding really resolute, or, here's the clincher, if other ports then come out in sympathy with dockers, sympathy striking, to use, that's not 1970s phrase, then it could be really, really difficult at a time when the UK economy is already weak, already trying to fend off recession. This gives the union a lot of power.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's talk about the wider UK economy and that rate of inflation. The Bank of England's most recent official estimate is 13%, isn't it? Heard today from Citigroup, one bank, suggesting it could be 18% by next year.
Well, the Bank of England's really playing catch-up, as I've been saying, for many...
I mean, that official figure's just ratcheted up.
Many months. We're currently... OK, so these are CPI numbers, Consumer Price Index numbers. The target is 2%, astonishingly. We're now at 10.3%. That was the number for June that came out recently. 10.3% inflation. The Bank of England said it could go to 13 this autumn when that Ofgem energy price cap goes up. But that was at a time when the Ofgem energy price cap was expected to go up from just under £2,000 now to just over £3,000. Massive percentage increase. But now you've got, very well-regarded industry analysts of looking at wholesale gas prices, looking at energy markets across Europe and the world, saying the Ofgem energy price cap could go above £4,000, even higher. And that's why private sector forecasters like Citigroup, who you mentioned, are saying the Bank of England is again behind the curve. We could see 15, 16, 18% inflation. And that is absolutely ghastly in terms of this cost of living crisis. It will mean more interest rate rises, and it will mean whatever pay rise you can get, if you can get any at all, it's going to be eroded faster by inflation.
Yeah. As you say, not just the Bank of England playing catch-up, but the rest of us too. Liam, as always, really appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much indeed. Liam Hannigan, our business and economics editor in the studio. OK, we're going to pause there on the briefing. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, though, we'll be in Manchester. The cousin of heavyweight boxer Tyson Fury was stabbed to death. Lots of calls for tougher punishments and sentences when it comes to crime related to knife crime. We'll also be talking about what happened in Russia over the weekend with that explosion. All that and much more between now and 4. But first, let's bring you up to date with the latest news headlines.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 3:33. I'm Bethany Elsey in the GB newsroom. Criminal barristers in England and Wales will stage an indefinite and uninterrupted strike next month. Members of the Criminal Bar Association have already been walking out in alternate weeks in a dispute with the government over jobs, pay and legal aid funding. The new and all-out industrial action will start from the 5th of September. UK inflation is on course to breach 18% at the start of next year due to soaring energy bills. New forecasts by economists at Citi, an investment banking firm, are warning the consumer price index inflation will reach 18.6% in January, the highest rate for almost half a century. Last month, inflation hit a new 40-year high of 10.1%. The group also predicts the energy price cap will hit £4,500 in January. The Labour leader is calling on the next Prime Minister to make insulating homes a national mission amid the rising cost of energy. Sir Keir Starmer has set out plans to upgrade 19 million homes over the next decade. The party says their heat-saving project would save households £11 billion over 3 years. Russia is accusing Ukraine of assassinating the daughter of one of President Vladimir Putin's top supporters. The Kremlin's internal security service, the FSB, claims a Ukrainian citizen was behind the attack. Daria Dugina was killed by a suspected car bomb on a road outside Moscow on Saturday night. Ukraine has denied any involvement, and the allegations have not yet been independently verified. And the Scottish Government is being urged to intervene in a strike being held by council staff in Edinburgh, which has left bins overflowing. The Conservatives and Lib Dems are both demanding action, although First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says she hopes the improved pay offer will be sufficient to end the disruption. The walkout is the first in a series of protests planned by trade unions over pay. It will continue until the 30th of August. You're watching GB News on TV, online and DAB+ radio. We'll get back to Darren in just a moment.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
But first, here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you 1.178 to the dollar, and the pound is 1.181 to the euro. And the price of gold currently stands at £1,471.51 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Very welcome back to GB News. It is 22 minutes to 4 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. We're on TV, online, and of course on your DAB digital radio. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Do get in touch, by the way, gbviews at gbnews.uk, or indeed tweet me at gbnews, and we'll get to those later on in the programme. But first, let's turn to that shocking news at the weekend, where it emerged that the cousin of the British celebrity boxer, Tyson Fury, that is Rick O'Burton, was stabbed to death in Greater Manchester. It's led to calls, not least of all from Tyson himself, calling for tougher sentences when it comes to knife crime. Well, let's go to Manchester now and speak to our GB News North West reporter, Sophie Reefer, who joins us from there. Sophie, this was a shocking incident. The police even described it as a shocking incident. And as I say, there are calls for tougher sentences to try and crack down on what Tyson Fury himself called a pandemic.
Absolutely. It was described as a shocking incident. At 3 a.m. on Sunday morning, police were called to Goose Green in Altrincham, Greater Manchester, after reports of 2 stabbing incidents. When they arrived at the scene, they found 31-year-old Rico Burton being treated for his stab wounds, alongside a 17-year-old man who's yet to be named. Both men were taken to Manchester Royal Infirmary, where Mr. Burton sadly died from his injuries. The 17-year-old is still being treated at the hospital in what's being described as a serious but not life-threatening condition. Now, as you say, Rico Burton has been confirmed as the cousin of heavyweight boxer Tyson Fury. And Mr. Fury took to social media to call on the government to increase the sentencing for knife attacks. He said the situation is getting ridiculous and anyone carrying a knife is an idiot. Now, I'm here at Jimmy Egan's Boxing Academy, joined by Steve Egan, who is the former coach of Tyson Fury and the former coach of Rico Burton. Can you just tell us a little bit about Rico Burton, what he was like as a person?
Fantastic lad, always up for a laugh, always smiling. Brightens the room as he walks in, just a proper personality, and a great lad. You know, a fantastic boxer. He come here, he won 2 national titles for us here. Knows his boxing really well. Not aggressive, he's just a boxer. Very skillful, very sharp. And what can I say? We're all devastated by the news.
Boxing has always had a reputation as a sport for bringing young people off the streets and getting them away for things such as knife crime. How important is it to yourselves in the boxing community to make sure that Rico's death wasn't in vain and that something is now done to reduce the amount of knife crime that we're seeing, not just in Greater Manchester but across the UK?
Yeah, it's gone crazy in this country now. The knife crime's just gone through the roof, hasn't it? We're just going to do the best we can. We have an anti-knife banner on the front of our gym. We've had it about 2-3 years now. There's not a lot we can do apart from bring the kids in the gym, show them how to be, show them how to look after themselves and teach them discipline, manners and respect, and give them something else to be instead of hanging around the streets being stupid and doing daft stuff and get into the sport.
So you agree with Tyson Fury that the government needs to do something to perhaps to increase the sentence for knife crime?
Definitely. If you carry a knife, you deserve 10 years. If you get caught with a knife on you, 10 years. And that'd stop people carrying it. Well, hopefully, anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve. Now, the police have said that there is a murder investigation now ongoing. A 21-year-old man and a 20-year-old man have both been arrested, one on suspicion of murder and one on suspicion of causing grievous bodily harm with intent to murder. Police are also asking anyone with any information about these attacks to come forward immediately.
OK, Sophie, really appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. That's Sophie Reaper there joining us in Manchester this afternoon. Let's move back to politics now. Michael Gove has come out in support of Rishi Sunak to be the next Conservative leader and Prime Minister, endorsing the former Chancellor in the Times newspaper. He pretty heavily criticised Liz Truss's tax policies, calling them a holiday from reality. And he also said he did not expect a return to front-bench politics. Well, delighted to say, joining me in the studio is former Special Advisor to Michael Gove, Charlie Riley. Charlie, good afternoon to you. First of all, Michael kept his powder dry, I think it's fair to say, for most of the campaign. What do you think prompted him to come out and back Rishi at the weekend?
Well, I think, like everyone else and everyone that's a Tory member that has a vote in this race, he's taken his time to just see both candidates, to see what ideas they're going to put forward, what they're going to do if they become the next leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister of the country. He's allowed, I think, a number of weeks. I think it's fair to say it's quite a few weeks, a few too many weeks for some people, I think, this race.
I think you can definitely say that. And I went away on holiday and it's still going on.
And I'm afraid, Jess, you've come back to 2 more weeks. Yeah. But I think he's just waited to see what the candidates have got to put forward, how they're going to deal with the difficult decisions that are going to have to be taken in the next couple of years. And he's decided that Rishi's got the ideas to deal with those difficult situations.
But it's not just the ideas. He clearly thinks that Liz has not got the ideas, but got the wrong ideas. I mean, this line that it was a holiday from reality, the economic policy, is pretty punchy, isn't it?
It is, but I think, it's fair to say over 11 years in senior cabinet roles under 3 different prime ministers, you're going to have some artistic differences with your cabinet colleagues, I'd imagine. But I think I think I said on this programme before, it's never going to be a binary choice between tax cuts and financial support to the most vulnerable. And I think the candidates have tried to portray themselves as either the tax cutter or the individual Rishi who's going to be able to provide that financial support. It's not binary. I'm sure both will happen. It's to what extent you do have tax cuts and how much they bite and help people versus the financial support that will be needed to those that are most vulnerable.
Now, it's reported, though, that there is some personal animosity between Liz Truss and Michael Gove, that this goes beyond politics. Is that fair?
Look, as I say, I mean, they're big cabinet beasts. I mean, both Liz and Michael have been in the cabinet, I think, longer than anybody else. Out of the current crop of Conservative MPs. So they're going to have differences along the way. But we are one big Conservative family, and I no doubt that we will all come together at the end of this contest and rally behind whoever becomes the next Prime Minister. Well,
or indeed behind the current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, because according to a poll, he's more popular than either of them. I mean, is that a concern that, 49% say, actually, it maybe was a mistake to oust him?
I completely understand why people still hold that view. Boris has got a lot of qualities. He's been able to do things that no other politician has been able to do, which is to reach across the political divide. He's made people from all kinds of backgrounds, north, south, rich, poor, vote for the Conservative Party. They've lent us our vote. And he's a brilliant campaigner. We know that. I hope that he will still have a part to play in the next election. And I can understand why people would still want him to be in that position of Prime Minister. But, we know what happened a few weeks ago, which made it unable for him to continue. I think he will continue to serve the Conservative Party, but just not as Prime Minister.
Well, we'll see. Or he may well flee from the Commons. We'll see. I've just seen that the Conservative Party put out an announcement, which we knew was going to be made on the 5th of September, but it's going to be at 12:30 p.m. in Westminster. The new Conservative leader will be announced 2 weeks today, so we will know in 2 weeks' time. And then the new leader will take over from Boris Johnson, of course, on the Tuesday, on the 6th of September. Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak will go and see the Queen. And, of course, the first PMQs will be on the Wednesday on the 7th. So a pretty dramatic start to September. Is there a sense, though, and we heard this from Keir Starmer earlier on today, when you look at the itinerary of things lining up and the problems lining up, strikes, inflation, ambulances stuck in hospitals, I mean, it really is quite difficult stuff. And at the moment, there seems to be a sense of frustration among some voters, at least, and particularly the opposition parties, that the government are unable to do anything about it because of this prolonged Conservative race.
Totally, and I think that is a problem. It has gone on for probably longer than what anybody wanted. But it does mean, as you say, whoever becomes the next Prime Minister, they've got a big in-tray there. There'll be not much of a honeymoon period to get to grips with those issues. I think Liz has already said she will hold an emergency budget. We've got to see that. We've got to let her get in. If it is going to be Liz, let her get in, get her feet under the table, and see what comes forward with support for dealing with those issues, with cost of living, with strikes, with everything else that will be in her in-tray, as you say.
And just very finally, Charlie, I mean, I don't know if you're a betting man or not. We're just looking there at pictures of the GBNews hustings that took place last Friday night with Alistair Stewart in the chair. Is there any now that it's not Liz Truss's for the taking?
I think I haven't voted.
Oh, OK.
So I'm still going to see out the final couple of weeks just to see how it plays out, because I think the holding lines that they've both got at the minute can't last for too much longer. I think Liz is going to have to explain a bit more in more detail what kind of support is going to be had for, or is going to be there for the people that are most in need when it comes to energy bills. And I think Rishi's going to have to come up with a few more exciting, eye-catching policies just in the run-up to the end, and then I'll make my vote.
Well, interesting that you haven't voted. I wonder how many other people haven't done so either. Charlie, thank you very much indeed. Charlie Rowley there, joining us in the studio, former Special Advisor to Michael Gove. Have you voted? Maybe you haven't. Maybe you have. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Do get in touch. get hopefully to a couple of those before the end of the programme. But let's turn now to Russia, the war in Ukraine, and that explosion we saw at the weekend, because the Russian security services, the FSB, are claiming that it was Ukrainian special forces that were behind that Moscow car bombing that killed the daughter of an ally of Vladimir Putin. Ukraine has denied it was involved at all and has blamed internal power struggles between what it branded various political factions inside Russia for the attack. What influence could this, though, all have on the conflict in Ukraine? Let's bring in Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford, who joins us down the line. Good afternoon again to you, Stuart. First of all, just talk us through the significance of this explosion. It's been a long time since we've seen a car bomb explode in Moscow.
Good afternoon, Darren. Yes, it has been. Car bombs in Moscow were part of the political landscape about 10 years ago, before Vladimir Putin basically came into full power there. But it is another indication that all is not well within the Russian state. I think when you add this latest explosive event on top of all the other ones that seem to be happening around Crimea and across the border with Russia, it's an indication that things are not going Russia's way in Ukraine, and that there may be some internal dissent within Russia, within the Russian state itself, which is now coming to the boil.
And what do you think that tells us about Vladimir Putin's grip on control? Could it get worse? And potentially, can we even speculate, if it's not these Ukrainian special forces, which seems pretty unlikely, though the Russians are blaming them, who might be behind all of this?
Yeah, I mean, one could argue that if the Ukrainian security services or special forces had the ability to put sort of assassination squads into Moscow at will, then perhaps Alexander Dugin's daughter might not be the primary target that you would expect. But I think that it is indicative of some turmoil. The FSB have unexpectedly blamed it on the Ukraine. And have given details of how it was carried out. An agent with her daughter crossing into Moscow, staying a while, setting off the bomb, and then escaping to Estonia. But it's also possible that it's the FSB. It's an FSB false flag operation to try and stir up opposition to the Ukrainians as a whole, or indeed there's this new shadowy National Republican Army that we hear about, although nobody seems to know exactly what it is, but it's certainly not pro-Putin regime. It's all very murky. The answer lies in Moscow, and we may find out in due course, or perhaps we may not.
Indeed, in many ways, you could also make the argument, the very fact that if it was the Ukrainian special forces, that's a sign of Russian weakness, that they're able to act apparently with will in the Russian capital. Let's talk about the war itself in Ukraine. And here we are, in many ways, towards the end of the summer, and the narrative hasn't really massively changed, or the situation on the ground doesn't seem to have massively changed. Both sides stuck in. Yes, Russia's made a bit of progress over the summer, but they've also faced some difficulties as well.
Yes, indeed. I think we're 180 days into the war now, February 24th to August the 24th shortly. So not much has changed really over the past few months. We have
what's the outcome again?
A traditional standoff in the Donbass, but things beginning to warm up a little bit in Kherson to the south. Although it's difficult to see who's making any progress there.
And just very finally, there is concern, though, Ukrainian Independence Day is coming about. For some reason, these kind of despotic leaders like to target these symbolic days. And there is a sense that Ukraine's somewhat braced potentially for at least further missile attacks in the days and weeks to come.
Yes, absolutely. I think that there is a real danger of the Russians trying to make some impact on Ukrainian Independence Day. And I understand that the planned parades in Kiev and Kharkiv have already been cancelled. And I think that's a very sensible precaution, because it is a focal point in the calendar which Russia might seek to exploit to maximum effect.
OK, really appreciate your time this afternoon. That's Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. Join us down the line there from Edinburgh. I hope you're getting your bins collected as well, Stuart. I see there's a strike there. It doesn't look particularly pretty.
It's absolutely. I mean, I was in Edinburgh the other day for one of the festival events, and it really is not a very good advertisement for Scotland's capital at the moment. But these things have to work themselves out, and unfortunately, it's not very encouraging for future tourism.
No, indeed. Hopefully it will get sorted out, because it's a great city, Edinburgh, so hopefully it will during the Fringe Festival. Thank you very much indeed. As I say,
thank you.
Stuart Crawford there joining us down the line from Scotland. Lots of you getting in touch this afternoon. GB Views at gbnews.uk. Lots of you not terribly happy with Keir Starmer, perhaps unsurprisingly. Margaret says Starmer needs to find another word for insulate. He can't even pronounce his genius idea, let alone run the country. Robert says, well, Darren, Starmer didn't answer the question, just rambled on about houses. Parker says, Starmer says people are striking because they're unable to make ends meet. They won't do that by giving up between £200 to £600 every week while they're on strike. They'll never get that back. What do they hope with these political strikes to bring down the government? Mick Lynch certainly won't lose a penny of his £135,000 salary, and members should remember that. Gwen says, in regards to Rishi Sunak, he's vain, insensible and a backstabber. That's enough for now. I could say more. We'll wait for that. And Jenny says, we always have a zombie government during summer recess. No government should have 6 weeks off. I know they act like children, but do they really need summer holidays? I'm sure there are many of you who feel exactly the same. Do always get in touch with GB Views at gbnews.uk, or indeed tweet me at GBNews. OK, that's it from me today on The Briefing. Back again, of course, at 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Hope you can join me then. Thomas here at 9:30, Gloria at 12. Up next, it is Mark Longhurst standing in for Colin Brazier between 4 and 6. Stay tuned for that. But we'll leave you with the weather on this Monday afternoon. I'll see you tomorrow. Have a nice one.
I'm Alex Deakin with your latest weather update from the Met Office. A bit of a mishmash out there today. Some places having a bit of evening sunshine, but most staying fairly cloudy. Rain and drizzle here and there. Quite warm and humid, particularly in the south. Tucked in between these two weather fronts, quite a lot of warm and humid air as it's cooler conditions further north. But these weather fronts are bringing a lot of cloud. They've brought some outbreaks of rain and still some heavier bursts of rain this evening over the Midlands, drifting over northeast England. A bit of showery rain too, crossing Scotland, but turning drier in the west, at least for a time. A few showers overnight moving across Northern Ireland. It's going to be quite a warm, humid night with temperatures in towns and cities holding up generally in the mid-teens. So quite a warm, humid start to Tuesday. Again, it's a fairly messy picture, but most of England and Wales will start dry, and for many, there'll be some morning sunshine. Zone of cloud drifting across Scotland with some outbreaks of rain. The odd shower for Northern Ireland, but mostly here it's dry and fine. And the cloud then thickening for Wales and southwest England with some heavier bursts of rain moving in here to end the day. But much of the eastern side of England will stay dry, not much rain here. And quite warm and humid in the sunny spells. Temperatures getting into the mid-20s at least. Some heavier showers then drifting across the Midlands through Tuesday evening. Again, largely missing East Anglia in the southeast, and then another zone of rain developing and spreading into parts of England and Wales for Wednesday. Some uncertainty about the exact position of this rain band, but it could be quite a wet day for parts of South Wales and parts of southwest England on Wednesday. A few showers for Scotland, Northern Ireland, but also some good spells of sunshine here. East Anglia in the southeast looking dry on Wednesday and really quite warm. Temperatures could get into the high 20s in places. Cooler conditions for Scotland and Northern Ireland. The outlook is still rather messy with low pressure nearby, some showers, this weather front moving through, but signs of high pressure bringing drier weather for most of us into the weekend.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello and welcome to Brazier with me, Mark Long, here sitting in for Colin today. And coming up in the usual fast-paced news from 4 until 6, in the next hour we have British boxing star Tyson Fury's calls on the government to introduce stronger punishments for knife crime. It follows his cousin being killed in a 10% on this. Initiatives to tackle knife crime just aren't working. More strike action. Now concerns over supply shortages as almost 2,000 members of the Unite Union